What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 74 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I'm here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. Christian, hello.
Hi.
Matt, hello.
Hello.
All right, everyone on YouTube, we are prepared, and we're gonna jump right into things. So if this is your first time watching, welcome. So we do this little intro just for the YouTube viewers, and then we will do different stuff for the actual podcast that people will hear audio. And apologies as I'm clicking around here trying to get everything sorted out and organized, which I should have done right before I hit go live, but I didn't, and that is on me. I'll accept that responsibility. If you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to send us questions, comments as we go along. We would love to hear from you, and we'll try to address your thoughts as we're talking about the different topics. Again, the description of this podcast and this video will have links to all the stories we're going to talk about. So if you want to read ahead and prepare, that'd be swell. Or if you just want to chime in when you hear us talk about something, that'd be cool too. With that, Christian, you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay, Matt, you good?
Yep.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 74 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I am here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. Christian, how's it going? How was your last week?
My last week was great, Dave. I was at Penn State for the last 3.5 days, so that was a nice little vacation I got to take, 4-day weekend. Work's been a little stressful with a lot of changes going on, but I am rested and ready to tackle my challenges when I get back there tomorrow.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, and you had a good time at Penn State?
Of course.
I'm happy to hear that. Matt, how are you doing? How's everything going with you?
Everything's good. Starting to play soccer a little bit more again, so that's always nice. Getting back to my roots, trying that again. So I'm excited to see how long it takes before I get hurt.
Nice. Well, hopefully it's a long time before you get hurt. Christian, you're laughing?
Oh, just getting back to the roots,
Yeah.
Just was a funny
going back to where it all began. Guys, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. This last week has been good. This weekend, Kristen and we went down to Capitola, which is a beach town right next to Santa Cruz out here in California, and just went on a hike, explored that area. So that was really cool. And beyond that, weather's starting to get really nice out here. So starting to pick up a tan, starting to feel good. I'm just loving life out here. Christian, do you have our trivia question for this week?
Yeah, it's real nice weather out here too, Dave. Just I want to throw that in there. 70, 75, and sunny. So don't act like you only have the best weather out there. Okay. Trivia question this week. Can you guys, and bonus points if you get it in order, name the top 10 teams in the Premier League history, all 25 seasons so far?
Based on points?
Yeah, points.
Okay. We will think on that, and we will give our guesses at the end. Listeners, think on it as well and give your guess and play along at home. We would just love that. Before we get into our topics real quick, I wanted to give a plug for StadiumScene.com. So we have partnered with Stadium Scene, who is a travel blog and website where they have things to do around stadiums in the United States. So they have where to park, where to eat, where to go after a game that you're attending. So you definitely want to go to stadiumscene.com and check all of that out before you go to a game. They also have reviews and recommendations for users. So if you went to a game, leave them a review. Let other people know, it's community. If you leave a review, that would be really helpful. Additionally, they partner with content creators like us to offer all different kinds of content, blog posts, podcasts, images, videos, all different kinds of things. And that's over at stadiumscene.tv. So go check that out. Look at our stuff, look at other people's stuff. Again, it's not just specific to soccer, and they do a wide range of sports. So with that, let's get into our topics for this week. First up, big news today. Well, it's not today. It's been big news over the past few days, but Arsene Wenger will be leaving Arsenal at the end of the season. He's been there 22 years, I believe, and has, enjoyed incredible success, but the last 10 years have been a bit rough. Christian, are you surprised that he is leaving at this point?
I've been waiting for him to leave for the last 5 years, so not really, but I guess because it's him, I am surprised, and I'm surprised that he announced it at this point in the season. Seems a little bizarre to me. I think it is time for him to go. I think his time to go was probably a couple of years ago. I think the fans have shown him absolutely no respect, which is ridiculous for all the stuff that he's done for them over the last 22 years. But the standards have dropped. He hasn't kept up with the times, so they have a right to express themselves. But still, I don't really like the way that he was treated by them, and he's stepping away and even flat out said that's one of the main reasons that he is.
Matt, are you surprised that he's stepping away at this point?
I'm not surprised. I think it's unfortunate. I agree with Christian how the fans have treated him over these last couple of years, especially. The timing of it, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's really strange. The title race is over. He can't really get in the top 4.
He's still in a real battle from the Europa League, though.
Yeah, but I think that could motivate them, like knowing to save Wenger's legacy, qualifying them for Champions League, beating Atletico, and then winning the final. I think that could be their only motivation they have left. Like, this is their last time with Wenger. Have it go out with a bang. So I don't have a problem with when he announced it.
Fair enough. So what's his legacy? Because, he had a great run in the early part of his career, and the last, few years have been a bit rough. So Christian, for you, what's his legacy in English soccer, and maybe just in a broader context?
His legacy is that he changed the game completely in England. He brought a new style, kind of was the Pep before Pep. He really brought that attractive attacking possession style, and he will be remembered for that. His teams are incredible. He was the only manager to ever coach a team in England that didn't lose a game all season long in the league. So he really was a top-class manager, got the best out of his players. People will remember the last couple of years because that's just how people are. It's what have you done for me lately? But it's not going to tarnish the overall legacy that he's left at Arsenal and the Premier League as a whole.
Yeah, fair enough. And one point of clarification, there was another undefeated team, I think back in the 1800s or whatever, but that was before managers were even a real thing. So Christian's point is dead on. He's the first manager to ever really kind of do that, because back then it wasn't like what we think of as managers. Matt, what is his legacy for you?
I think he's going to go down as the second best Premier League manager ever. I don't think there's anything to really argue against that point at this point with all his accomplishments. And even in the last couple of years where they haven't necessarily been to Arsenal standards, he's still got a couple FA Cups in there, got some trophies. So I think that definitely helps save his legacy. And I just think it'll go down as the second greatest Premier League manager.
I'd agree with that.
Sorry. Does he have any shot at being the best ever? I know Sir Alex was dominant, but he had a better team. He was in a better financial situation. Could you argue that point? I think you can argue it. I don't think it's true from my point of view, but do you think it's worth an argument?
I do not, because I think you're judged by your accolades and everything you've won. And Sir Alex's dominance, it's like, I don't know, all sports, like the team that wins the championships, their coach is usually regarded as like the best of his time period.
Yeah, but Sir Alex didn't really have a transition period the way that Arsenal did.
They did.
With the building of a stadium and all that stuff. No, that was completely a different animal that he had to tackle.
No, that's a really good point. So it is comparing apples to oranges, but I mean, when Sir Alex arrived in Manchester, they weren't the club that they are today, and he built them into that. So yes, it wasn't an exact same situation, but Sir Alex, it's not like he inherited a team that was already winning tons of titles and kept that legacy going over a 25-year period. I think without question, Arsene Wenger can't really compete with Sir Alex, but like Matt said, I think he is the second best Premier League manager in its history. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is that lost my train of thought. You're cracking your knuckles, and that completely threw me off. It's similar to how other legends that, are in the twilight of their careers and maybe hang on a little bit too long. We saw it with Brett Favre and maybe some other players in American sports, but they're remembered immediately after they retire on what they've done most recently. And so as time goes on, you're going to see, I think, him remembered more fondly. We talked about it with Iker Casillas. That was the soccer player we talked about recently. As time goes on, I think Arsene will be remembered as a great manager, and not that he's not now, but I think his legacy will grow as time sort of goes on. Last thing on this topic, we got a question from @WorldHotspur, who's a Hotspur fan, but he's producing all sorts of content. So go check him out on Twitter. He's doing lots of cool, awesome things. But who should replace Wenger at Arsenal, and should he have left sooner? So Christian, your thoughts there?
Oh man, this is a real tough one. There's a lot of really good managers that are out there, and especially with the World Cup, this year, there might be a lot of those international managers that could possibly come back to club football. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's someone like Ancelotti who's going to step in there. I think he's there to kind of right the ship, and especially if they win the Europa League, they'll be in the Champions League. They'll be able to attract a name like that. But I think it'd be interesting to see someone like Jurgi Löw, who's the Germany coach right now, kind of come in there and take over, because we haven't seen him in club football in a really long time, but he is a top class manager. And I think he would be amazing. I think Simeone would be amazing, but I can't see him leaving Atletico at this time.
Yeah, and so we're recording this thing on Monday, April 23rd, and so a lot of other people have already discussed this. And this morning I listened to the Totally Football show, and they say Löw is the current betting favorite to take over as manager.
I had no idea,
which I found to be
I'm just cool.
Yeah,
I'm just way ahead of my time.
So should he have left sooner, Christian?
Yes, I think he absolutely should have left sooner.
Matt, your thoughts on who should replace him, and should he have left sooner?
I do not think he should have left sooner, and who could replace him? Tuchel from Dortmund, I think, is a potential suitor. I think he does a good job of investing in the youth, and how Dortmund, it's like kind of a similar system he would go into in an Arsenal with how much they value youth. I think it would be a pretty good fit. Ancelotti, I'm pretty sure like every big club is going to be after him to some extent. So he's up there. So I would think those two are the two like I would be perfectly fine with Arsenal getting.
So Tuchel apparently has already agreed to PSG. I mean, it's not announced yet, but most people are already kind of reporting it. I think he would have been a good fit, but that seems to be out the window. Other people, again, like I've said, I've already heard a lot of different people discuss this. Ancelotti's been rumored, but somebody brought up a really good point. I think it was Raphael Honigstein, that Ancelotti is very laissez-faire, and this Arsenal team needs to have a culture change and sort of a kick, where Diego Simeone would definitely bring that, but these players will not respond to his style. So I legitimately have no idea who they're going to go after. I mean, I've heard Patrick Vieira. I think he would be an interesting one, but apparently he left on pretty poor terms with Arsenal, and so he's very deep into the City Academy, and they seem to be grooming him to replace Guardiola whenever that time comes. So I legitimately have no idea who's gonna take.
I think Wenger said that his favorite right now would be Vieira. I'm pretty sure I read that he said that.
Okay, Christian, you had something.
Pep actually just said Vieira's ready to step into that. So that was an interesting. I saw he was quoted saying that. So that would be an interesting endorsement.
Yeah, he's done great things. Vieira's done great things for New York City FC and in MLS. I know I've been following them, and he's built them into one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, which is one of the is the stronger conference of the two. So he'd be certainly an interesting candidate and somebody who could manage at that level. He was one of the best players in the world. So Matt, anything else you want to add real quick before we move on?
And Vieira did extremely well with City's Academy, their EDS, like the U23s. He did so well with them. So I think he could transition into English management as well.
Good point. So let's move on to the second topic we wanted to talk about in this first segment. Unless, Christian, you have something absolutely burning that you need to say.
I wanted to say something, but I don't need to say it.
Go ahead. Say it. We've already...
All right. I was going to say that I think it would be a huge loss of an asset for MLS to just let him leave as well, though. I think he's a huge name that might be attracting some of the star players into New York, and that is related to Manchester City, their kind of parent club, whatever. But I think it would be a huge loss for MLS.
Absolutely. I think he's one of the best managers in MLS right now. So I would agree with that. But I think it would be good, similar to players leaving MLS and going on to bigger and better things. I think it would do well for the league to have managers go on and do bigger and better things. Sorry,
I had one more question. Where do you think Wenger goes? Because he said he's not retiring.
I can't believe he's not retiring. He's 69 years old. Like, I legitimately have I could see him moving into a technical director, manager, like not manager, but like an overseer type of position rather than on the sidelines. But I legitimately have no idea. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I can't believe he still wants to coach. I have no idea where he's going to end up, especially after like everything that happened at Arsenal and how he wants to go through that again at another club the last couple of years.
So that'll be interesting to follow. Christian, do you have somewhere you want him to go?
If Tuchel isn't going, I'd be interested to see him in France, especially with PSG or a Monaco type of club, because he's French. But do you think the French national team is an actual possibility?
I think it's possible. I think it's more possible for him to go international than it is for him to
I
go
think
to
so as
club.
well. I think France makes most sense to me.
Yeah, and so it all depends on what the Champs wants to do with France and how they do at the World Cup. So that could be a really interesting point. But let's move this thing along and talk about the next thing we wanted to talk about in this first segment. So we talked about this kind of last week and definitely over recent podcasts about how super clubs in the world are, specifically in Europe, are judged solely on their Champions League performance. Barcelona's season is largely going to be seen as somewhat of a failure, though they may go undefeated. They just won Copa del Rey in just absolutely trashed Sevilla 5-0 in the final. And you see it with Bayern, who've, been deemed unsuccessful under Pep Guardiola, even though they've won the Bundesliga 6 times. And so, as I had an article, Sports Illustrated, which we'll link to, Matt, do you agree that super clubs today are being judged solely on the Champions League?
Yes, I agree with that, but I do not think it's necessarily fair. It's like the biggest so it is the biggest competition for clubs, but it's a knockout competition, so it's not necessarily, it doesn't reflect how you played the entire season. So I think it's the best honor to win, but it's not something that reflects how well the team is. Like Barcelona should still have the incredible year that they still haven't lost yet, right?
In the league, no.
Yeah, so that's and they won the Copa del Rey, so they haven't lost to any domestic opponent.
Copa del Rey, I don't know, because they do have 2 legs in some of them, so I don't know if that's 100% a fact,
okay.
but you could be right. I just don't know.
Okay.
They lost to Celta Vigo away and then won the home leg.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So it's still an incredible season, and same thing with Man City. We would have liked to go further, but I think City's had their best season ever, even without winning the Champions League.
Can anything be done to change it from either a fan's perspective, from a club's perspective, from an organizational, like UEFA perspective? Can anything be done to change this prevailing notion?
I don't think so, because the way the media hypes up the Champions League and everything like that, just everyone's perspective thinks like that's the best club. So regardless of Real Madrid's performance in the league this year, they're going to be remembered. If they win, they're going to win 3 straight, 4 out of 5 Champions Leagues, and they're going to be remembered as. And they're going to go when you look on paper, you're going to say this was the best team ever if they win 4 out of 5 Champions Leagues, like throughout in the history books.
Yeah, Madrid of the 1950s may have something to say about that because they won 6 straight. But that's getting into different things. I'm deep into research on lots of different things, so that's why I have that top of mind. But Christian, do you agree that Super Leagues are judged solely on Champions League performance, and can anything be done to change that?
First, I just want to say Celta Vigo and Barca tied that first leg. For some reason, I thought it was lost. But yeah, no, I think they're undefeated in all Spanish games this year. I think every super club is judged solely on the Champions League. Yes, 100%, which I think is completely unfair. I know Pep this year, after they got knocked out of the Champions League, said the league is always the most difficult thing to win, and it's more of an honor to him. But obviously, any manager is going to say that. I think that the Champions League is the pinnacle. It is where all the top teams in all of Europe are, and that is what the super clubs focus on, and that's why it's so highly praised. I think they're more focused on that than in their leagues. As you saw, City rested a couple key players against United in the games between Liverpool. People are more worried about winning in the Champions League and making it to the semifinal, making to the final, because that's where you're really judged on, are you an elite club or are you just a dominant club in your own country?
So do you think a Super League is inevitable where there's a domestic, not a domestic competition, but a competition that isn't knockout, but that Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern, Liverpool, United, they all break away out of their individual domestic leagues and form this Super League? Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think this competition is already interesting enough. Anything can happen. Roma and Liverpool are in the semifinals, teams that people really wrote off before the season has no chance of getting that far. I think it's awesome, and it makes it for a real interesting competition, and it makes it more competitive that way. But these knockout games are huge, and it's a whole different side of the game.
But is that an anomaly? Because the past few years, that hasn't been the case. It's been Bayern, Barca, and Real Madrid, I think, in the semifinals.
Yeah, but before, like in the 2000s, it was always different teams there almost every single year, and maybe we're kind of on a path back to that. It's cyclical in soccer, and so maybe those top teams are getting older and maybe they're going to have to rebuild. And yeah, those teams are always going to come back and dominate the way they had the past couple of years. but maybe for the next 2 or 3 years, they're not going to be as strong, and teams aren't going to come in and be fearful. They're actually going to play them in their own game.
Matt, do you think a Super League is inevitable?
I think if the money is there, like depending on how much money and how much media, like wherever the media rights go, and just like the financials of it, I think it's going to be really hard to turn down, especially with these big clubs.
I think that I don't know if it's inevitable, but I think something is inevitable, whether it's a revamping of the Champions League or whether it's a different competition created entirely where they still play in their domestic league, but then all of the biggest teams are in some sort of their own competition. I think something is bound to happen because there's too much money at stake and there's too much demand for seeing these big teams playing against each other to have UEFA and these teams kind of risk as ridiculous as this sounds, but these smaller markets, getting further in the competition to a certain extent sometimes hurts the product. As crazy as that may seem, because, we all want to see the underdog story is great, but the reality of the situation is if a team only has, 1 million fans on Facebook versus Real Madrid, who's got 500 million fans or something like that. Just the economics are just better to have Real Madrid involved. And, at the end of the day, what sport kind of is these days is a blend between entertainment and business. And so, a part of me still wants to have the openness of the competition, but I think it is just somewhat inevitable that we're going to see some sort of breakaway or competition or league or something that's bound to happen. Christian, anything else you want to add?
I think that the majority of people, when the quarterfinal draw was made, were really, really excited that probably the top 4 teams in Europe all avoided each other, and we were going to see a semifinal with City, Barca, Madrid, and Bayern. But it didn't happen, and that's because the competition is set up in a way that one-off games can really change an entire tide and change the whole competition. I think that makes it more interesting for fans. That's just my opinion.
Matt, anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, that's the end of our first segment. You're going to hear a little bit of music, and then we will talk to you in our second segment. Talk to you soon. Cool. I thought that was really good. Nothing funny that we've said yet so far. So, any episode names?
Whatever Matt said at the beginning when you asked how he is, I forget what it is already.
Back to my roots.
Oh, yeah, something about the roots.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, that'll be that's definitely in the possibilities. Hey.
Let's get.
Welcome back, everyone. Now let's talk about FIFA and the World Cup. So we've talked about VAR kind of endlessly on this podcast in the past, but FIFA recently came out and said that they are going to be showing the replays that are watched by the referee in stadium at the World Cup for all of the fans to see. So, Christian, do you think it will help people get more comfortable with VAR, or do you think this is going to be a bad idea?
I think this is going to be a disaster. Fans are going to lose their shit because they're going to see what they want to see, even if the call is clearly or if it's close and they feel like their team's being judged poorly. People are going to freak out, and I think it's going to cause a lot of issues. It might actually increase the environment in the games and inside the stadiums because people will be booing and they'll feel like the refs are judging them. But we're going to hear a lot of boos for the referees, I feel like, in this upcoming World Cup when this happens.
But is it better to be more transparent than less transparent?
As somebody who goes to a lot of games, I would love to see replays, but I understand why they don't do it because they don't want people to really, really just go all in on the refs. They're trying to kind of protect them. I'm happy that FIFA is doing this, but I think they might regret it.
Okay. Matt, your thoughts here? Do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think the fans deserve the perspective. Basketball, it's the same thing. It's all judgment calls, and the refs are wrong all the time. The fans boo, and the player still shoots his free throws and keep going on. I think it's perfectly fine. It gives the fan, like you said, I think it's better to be more transparent, and you get to see what the ref's seeing. Regardless, the fans aren't the ones making the calls. You can boo all you want. I'm sure refs are used to it, so it's not something I think is going to affect the game.
Yeah,
any chance that fans get so upset that they're going to try and storm the field?
I think that's going to happen. That happens already. So
I think this increases the likelihood of it because they say, "Oh, well, I just saw it. Like I know that it just happened."
Possibly, but I mean, that's not really, that's on security and everybody to stop that from happening, or just people to behave like rational adults.
Well, soccer fans aren't rational to begin with, and basketball calls aren't as severe as soccer calls can be with red cards and penalties and stuff.
That's a good point. I mean, it is slightly different, but I mean, the concept is still the same. I mean, you see this, apparently this happens in rugby, in cricket, in tennis. Replays are shown in the stadiums. Everybody sees kind of the same thing, and the referee ultimately makes the decision. But
well,
Christian,
tennis seems like very clear
same
when
with
they
cricket.
show those.
Yeah. Okay, same with cricket. It's not 100%, but what I was getting at is exactly what you brought up. It builds an element and an atmosphere in the stadium for a decision to ultimately be made. Whereas right now, everybody is just kind of standing around, looking around, wondering what the ref is even looking at. Right now,
is it going to be exactly what the ref sees, or is it going to be like a type of replay and then the ref actually gets to see a lot more angles and stuff?
My understanding is it will be what the referee is watching, but it could be something like basketball, because I think basketball, they don't do the exact replay as the referee. I don't know for 100% fact, but even this weekend, I wasn't watching the match, but I watched the highlights, and in the Sporting KC match, there were 2 red cards issued because of VAR, and in the highlights, it didn't really show it, and so I had no idea what the heck was going on or why these guys were given red cards, and then, going back and looking at the replay, it was a lot better for me at home, but I can imagine the people who were in the stands there had absolutely no idea what was happening. So I think that this is, admirable for FIFA to try to do. I think it's going to be a mess, and it's not going to, this whole VAR, I think, is just being rushed to be implemented, but, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Matt, any other thoughts here?
No.
Okay, Christian?
Do you think the fans are going to be more comfortable or less comfortable after showing it?
I think World Cup? I think they'll probably be more comfortable because, again, they'll be more comfortable, but they're still not going to be comfortable, right? Like they're not. I don't think it's 100% ready, but at a certain point, they gotta, get into it. I don't think they should be getting into it at the World Cup. I think they should, even the Premier League isn't instituting VAR next year because they don't have a ton of confidence in it. But Matt, I'm sorry, you have something to add?
I think it's good to do it at the World Cup because it's not a stadium where it's going to be predominantly like one fan base. Where the World Cup, it's more of a tame fan base.
That's an interesting perspective because it's split. It's not 100% overly dominant, and that's an interesting point. Rather than this being the world stage where everything should have already been fully tested and vetted before being implemented, there's an element to maybe this lends itself to having more experimentation. That's an interesting thought, man. Good job. Christian, anything else you want to add in closing?
Nope.
Okay, let's talk, speaking of the World Cup, and let's talk about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And so he retired from playing for the Swedish national team in 2016 after the Euros. He certainly didn't think they would be in the World Cup. And, he's been doing fairly well for the LA Galaxy over here in MLS. And he hasn't explicitly said that he wants to go to the World Cup. He's kind of hinted at that he's going to be going to the World Cup, but he has a sponsorship with somebody who's a brand at the World Cup, so he's going. And so he's kind of being coy, as he usually is. But Matt, from your perspective, he hasn't played for the national team in 2 years. They qualified without him. Do you think they should take him, or is he going to be a distraction?
I think they should, because it's not going to hurt having Ibrahimovic on your team, even if he's not necessarily starting, because I don't know if he can put the 90-minute work in at the international level anymore, especially coming off that knee injury. So I think putting him in late game situations where you need a goal, I don't think that's necessarily something that's going to hurt the team.
But what if he doesn't accept that? What if he wants to start?
That seems like a personal problem.
But then do you take him or no?
Yes, I think no matter what, you take him.
Okay. Christian, your thoughts here? Should they take him?
You're off your rocker if you don't take Ibrahimovic with you. That is absurd. He is clearly one of the best strikers of our time, and I don't care how old he is. We talked about this numerous times. His style of play still is effective, and he can play from the start, I think. He's not somebody who's going to chase the ball on defense. And I think he's told not to do that. It's similar to the way Messi plays. not really, but
they don't play defense,
defensively. They're told not to track back, and I think he is such a key player and a key striker who could come up with goals, ridiculous goals at any moment in time. Look at his MLS debut; he scored from 40 yards out and just chipped the keeper on the full volley or half volley. I think it bounced, but that's absurd. Like, he can just do things like that, and you need him on the field for a team like Sweden, who really you don't look at them as a threat to the World Cup. Having Ibra just bumps them up at that extra level, and still not elite, but he is elite.
I could be wrong about this, but I'm fairly certain they never qualified for a World Cup while he was playing for the national team, and this would be his first World Cup. He did?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
2006, right?
Yes.
Okay, but they haven't played in the World Cup in 12 years, right? With him there, and they qualify for this World Cup without him. Does that hold any weight for you, Matt?
I know the Swedish youth teams have been doing extremely well in recent years, and like performing at like the why am I blanking?
The European Championships?
Yeah, European Championships and like Youth World Cups. They've been playing pretty well. So I think maybe there's just more talent now, because in recent years I couldn't have named a single Swedish player other than Ibra, and now they're playing.
Henrik Larsson. There were some.
He wasn't there. Like
Lindbergh.
Yeah, they weren't there when Ibra was in his prime.
Okay, maybe not. I could be wrong. Yeah, but to your point, yeah, I don't know too many Swedish players. So you're somewhat on there. Christian, any stock you put in them already qualifying without him?
Not really. I think that this team is much better defensively. I don't think I could have named a single. I still can't, but I've seen them play a couple of times, and they seem just more composed defensively and keep their shape a little bit better. I think that goes a long way, and just throwing him on the field isn't going to hurt your team. If anything, it's going to help. Just provide that moment that you just scratch your head and say, how did he do that?
Yeah, and I think I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think that they should absolutely take him. And even, I want to say he is a big personality, but I mean, even coming here to MLS, he's done fantastic in his role of, he doesn't come in and think, everybody sucks and needs to raise their level, whatever. He's encouraging. And so if he can play that same way for the national team, which I assume he would, I think he would be an incredible asset for them to have. So I believe they should take him, and I think that they probably will take it. Matt, anything else you want to
add? Nope.
Christian?
No, I think he'll be pretty well rested. He hasn't been starting games yet in MLS, and he'll have time to actually build up that strength in his knee. So I think he'll be ready and fit to go. So they have to take him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he started the last 2 matches for LA Galaxy, but that's fine.
Well, he didn't start the season, so
yes, very true.
He has been rested, and he did come off the bench a couple of times.
He came off the bench, I believe, one time, but
twice.
Okay, twice. You're right. I apologize. With that brings us to the end of our second segment. You're going to hear just a little bit more music, and then we're going to talk to you in our third segment. Good job, guys. We're flowing. I'm feeling good about this. It's going well.
We're flowing. It's happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should probably, at the end, give Champions League predictions.
Yep.
All right. Somebody bring that up.
Yep.
Welcome back to our third and final segment. Now let's talk about soccer over on this side of the Atlantic. The U.S. has a new soccer federation president, and one of the main tenets of him getting the presidency was appointing a general manager position to sit above the U.S. national team manager and basically manage all of the technical side of U.S. soccer. So I think youth development, all of that stuff, and then the business side would be separate. In the past, it's kind of been meshed in and intertwined together. Matt, Christian, actually, sorry. So do you have any preference on, who should be the U.S. general manager? And also, there was a report recently, again, we'll link to it. It was from ESPN, that Ernie Stewart and Ali Curtis, Ernie Stewart's current general manager or technical director of the Philadelphia Union. Ali Curtis had the same role for New York Red Bulls. They were recently interviewed, and apparently they want to appoint a new general manager within the coming weeks. So, Christian, what do you think about the timing of all of that, and do you have a preference on who?
I don't really want to lose Ernie Stewart for the Union. I think he's done a good job of attracting talent, even though it's not being used correctly right now.
Let's not go down that road.
I think he would be a good choice to have as just running the technical side of things. He seems to have had really good experience in Europe and now with the Union. But sorry, what was the guy's name from the Red Bulls?
Ali Curtis.
Ali Curtis. I think that makes more sense. They're already looking for a replacement, right? Is that what you just said?
Ali Curtis left the New York Red Bulls a couple of years ago, so he's kind of been out of soccer. They already have a new director, or Jesse Marsch may actually be running everything himself.
What a tyrant! I really don't have a preference. I just want somebody to come in and change things and make it run smoothly. It just seems to be a disaster every single time. And I really appreciate that this presidency is going to be a little bit different. They want somebody to help them kind of,
hopefully it's different.
Kind of take over specific roles instead of one person trying to manage everything, having people below them or just below them kind of taking care of everything and them just advising and trying to force the issue a little bit.
That's a good point. And they've already, I've already heard rumors of committees being formed on the technical side. I think Carlos Bocanegra is involved. And so you already see a lot more of the sort of collective approach rather than sort of the, top-down kind of approach. So that has been encouraging. And so, Matt, maybe not specific names, but maybe, people you're looking for out of this position. And again, what do you think about the timing of all of this?
Yeah, so I don't have the problem with the timing of it. I don't think it's necessarily going to impact. We're not in the World Cup. I don't think it's going to impact much going on. I'm always supporting foreign, foreign managers and stuff like that, especially because I just miss Jurgen so much. And then U.S. soccer is not really developing at the rate we expect. Especially missing this World Cup.
So why foreign? Can you give your thoughts there on why foreign is good?
They have more. I feel like they're just know the development program and do a good job of from 17, 14, 17, 21s, 23s. Do a good job knowing which players are going to be with the national team. I see so much rotation of players in our U.S. national team and especially with the reserves. We have maybe 7 players are going to be on our national team, but then after that it's just the talent pool is just so random, and then they pick players that I don't agree with our national team players and they just stick with them too, certain players like that. So I think abroad they have much better understanding of which players are going to do well together and they grow up together, and I want to see that more than at the US where we don't really have our national team set up together.
But that's a manager issue, right? The manager is going to manage the talent pool. The GM is the one who's going to appoint the manager, and the manager is going to report into the GM and all of that. But he doesn't pick the talent pool. But I guess maybe if he was foreign or at least had that influence, he would pick a manager that would sort of embody those characteristics. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a strong preference either way. I mean, I think it would be interesting to appoint somebody who is somewhat familiar with, Ernie Stewart is ideally the perfect candidate. I mean, he has a familiarity with, he has a filmy with U.S. soccer and MLS and all of the mechanisms of that. He has a ton of experience playing his whole pretty much professional career in the Netherlands, except for that short stint in MLS at the end. He's got tons of contacts. I mean, he basically is the perfect candidate for this role. And so it's going to be, not great if the Union do lose him, but and if it's not him, it's got to be somebody kind of like him. That would be kind of my thought. Matt, something else to add?
At this point, I might just put Pulisic as manager, general manager, and just in charge of all U.S. soccer. He's experienced everything in Germany, and he's our only hope at this point.
That's a little bit too much pressure to heap on him. I don't think he's our only hope. We have a ton of good, talented players coming through, and Pulisic is has performed at the highest level. But at the end of the day, he's 19. We still don't know how these next few years, which are critical for his development, are going to go. So I'm not going to put that pressure on him just yet. Christian, anything else you want to add?
I'm just picturing R2D2. Help me, Christian. You're my only hope. No, we just need to do something. Something's got to change, and hopefully, I just honestly don't know what they can do because I no experience doing that. But they need to help fix the youth, help fix the talent pool, help do everything. Literally, start over. Just do everything. Do better.
Okay. All right. So that's all U.S. soccer has to do. So there you go, guys. We just solved the problem for you. Now let's talk about MLS and specifically New England Revolution. So an article came out recently that they are kind of starting to get into the waters of training compensation and solidarity payments for youth players. So anybody who doesn't know that, quick, explainer, basically oversees when a club develops a youth player and then another team signs that player, that club is compensated for that player's development. And so that's done through two sort of mechanisms: training compensation and solidarity payments. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty on what the difference is between them, but that's just the general concept. New England apparently is starting to offer scholarships and payments of about, I think it's up to $10,000 to teams that have developed players that the New England Revolution Academy ends up signing, and maybe they only pay once they get to the first team. I can't remember exactly what the article states, but basically they're towing into these waters, whereas MLS doesn't really touch on anything like this. So Matt, what are your thoughts about New England sort of getting into this, and what do you think about their approach? Should they be offering more money? What do you just think about this?
I think it's incredible. I don't know about more money because you haven't really seen the benefits of it yet.
More money.
How about the internet? Give us some of that money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't see really why it would be a bad idea to, reach into the community, try to get the homegrown talent like from the surrounding areas. It'll make people, I'm sure they're going to have like deals for those kids in those clubs that come to first team games. Like even the Union did that, like where my club I played for was like a partner with the Union. So they always gave us like discounted tickets and stuff like that. So I think like even something like this, just getting the community more involved with the first team with the New England Revolution is going to grow like a much bigger interest in the club.
Should every MLS team be doing this?
Yeah, I think so. The worst case scenario, like $10,000, it's really not too much.
Chump change.
Yeah, it's chump change. You just throw that around. Yeah, so I don't necessarily see like the negative side of investing in the youth and the community.
Okay, good points. Christian, your thoughts here on New England doing this?
I love the idea. I don't think it's enough money when you compare it to what's happening in Europe. It's something that we need to be more focused on. I think we should be throwing more money into the clubs that are going to be developing those youth players early enough. What?
But is that money going to come from? You said more money again. I know we keep touching.
More money.
So, but it has to start somewhere, right? So, I mean, is this at least a good start?
It is a good start, but I don't know if $10,000 is going to really change anything. And yeah, it's they're paying the clubs, correct, that are producing these players. It is going to help with facilities maybe, and just will help overall quality. Maybe it'll attract players in. Maybe you put in a turf field. Maybe you put in lights, and you just start generating a better overall facility for players to be developed. And maybe you bring in coaches. You're able to pay for them instead of having the players' parents pay for them. Yeah. There's just a lot. Yeah, it's going to benefit. I just don't think $10,000 is enough right now. But yeah, like you said, it's a start, and they're going down the right path, and other teams should follow suit.
I'm firmly on the record as training compensation and solidarity payments are something we need to implement, and you're spot on with exactly why they're critical. You start getting money, and so then you can invest that into your infrastructure, produce better players, and then you grow and all of that. And I know everybody
you put in a stadium, you build your own team, your own first team in MLS. You just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, and that was what I was getting to. But it doesn't have to get to necessarily be that level. You can build a sustainable club and a sustainable business without having promotion and relegation. I know a lot of people disagree on that front, and training compensation and solidarity payments have to go hand in hand. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that you can have community teams and community businesses that are built off of, producing really good players and then kind of moving them up the chain. And you don't necessarily need to have promotion and relegation to do that. And so, that's just kind of where I come down on that. Matt, anything else you wanted to add here?
Nope.
Christian?
Nope. I agree.
Okay. Let's talk about the last thing in our final segment, at least last main thing. Atlanta is doing some other really cool, interesting things in the South. Like Atlanta is absolutely crushing it as an MLS franchise. They're doing fantastic things. But one of their most recent projects is building small-sided, kind of five-a-side pitches in subway stations. So, Christian, what were your thoughts on hearing this? Should every MLS team be doing this? And then also, how effective do you think that this is going to be in either? Well, here, I'll stop. Sorry, I give you like tons of questions. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh my God, that's amazing! This sounds so fun. I would love to have that in Philadelphia, but I can't imagine that it would work here. I just think that I just don't. I just think it's a little bit too hectic and a little crazy, and I'm sure Atlanta's the same way. But I just can't picture a five-a-side field at like a subway station in Philadelphia. I don't think they have the room to put them in. Like, I don't know. I just can't see it from my point of view.
Okay.
But Atlanta, that's an awesome idea. I give them mad props for that. That's really just unique. It's not something that you see everywhere. And when we were in England, when we were riding the train, you see five-a-side pitches like all over as you're going anywhere. It's not just in cities. It seemed like they were everywhere. And, oh, man, if we had that just growing up, could you imagine how often we would have used that? It's really, really awesome. And I praise them for what they're doing down there.
We had soccer fields right behind our house. Did you not use those?
No, what? We had soccer fields? We had a house?
Yeah, for those who don't know, our house literally touched a park that had soccer fields and
we had a big wall too,
yeah,
just in case you're wondering.
Yes, big wall
no
that
big
you
deal.
could kick.
Big wall.
Soccer ball again. But, so Christian, let me ask then this sort of twist on the question. How effective is this going to be for either creating fans of soccer and or Atlanta United fans or developing players? Do you think what do you think is going to be more effective? Do you think it's going to be building fans of Atlanta United, or do you think it's going to be better for developing players?
I don't think it's really going to develop fans. I can't imagine that it would. I think it's more just an entertainment value for you to play. I don't think that it's like an advertisement for Atlanta. I mean, I'm sure it is in a way, but it doesn't seem like that is their main goal. I think it is awesome to help develop players. I don't know how many players are really going to develop their skills. I feel like this is more of a adult thing after you've already like passed your point where you're going to be able to be a professional. But
okay.
Why? Why do you not think so?
I don't think so. I mean, like, so in the city of Philadelphia, tons of kids ride the subway to get to and from school and all of that. I mean, I think in Philly, can't you go to any school in the city of Philadelphia? I think that's one of the tenants. So like kids ride the subway all the time. And so this isn't just for adults. This is definitely for youths.
Youths.
Yeah.
Okay.
Youths.
Youths. I think it's a okay, well, I never really thought about that. I don't really picture kids riding the subways, especially like just by themselves going to school. I really didn't know that was. Yeah, guys, I don't picture kids. Shut up. I don't know. I just didn't think about it from that perspective. And so if you do think of it from that way, I think it will help develop players because they're just going to be playing more and they'll be developing a different skill set in a small-sided game than they would playing 11v11 all the time. But we're still going to need that training at a young age before this five-a-side thing will ever really take off and develop more players.
Matt, your thoughts here?
I'm going to go like completely opposite of Christian. I don't think it's really going to develop talent, but I think it's going to develop interest in Atlanta United just because there's not many people to play soccer, and like having a place to actually play soccer and not like a full field, whereas now like the only place you can play is like an 11v11 field. Those are the only ones you see. Being able to play like a small-sided, it's just so much easier to get a group of people together or just see like a group and just show up to the field and play. Whereas like now, like I think the interest in basketball here is because there's a basketball court anywhere. It's 5v5, and you can just hop in with anybody and just play. And I think that's why basketball got so big here. I think that's why soccer in Atlanta could get big. It's just kids getting more involved, or even adults getting more involved playing the sport on like a small level where they don't have to run the whole field. And it's just like a quick game, and you just go from there.
And that's
so
how
it is. Do you think it's more developing interest in soccer or in Atlanta? Because what you just explained was more of the sport.
Yeah, but if your local team is Atlanta United, you're going to start following them.
I guess.
Yeah, no, and that's so. I think it's going to be both. So I know I asked the question, is it either or? But I think it's going to do both. I mean, what we lack in America.
So it's a trick question.
No, not necessarily, because you guys gave great answers, and you gave the points that I think I wanted to hear. And the reason I love having you guys both on is because you guys just disagree on everything, and it makes for interesting.
No, we don't.
Yeah, no, you guys did agree on the Ibra thing, but I think everything else on this podcast you've disagreed on, which has been awesome. That's what makes it interesting. But getting back to, Matt, what you were talking about, basketball is the sport of the inner city in America, whereas soccer is the sport of the inner city everywhere else. And it's because there are basketball courts everywhere here, and overseas there are soccer courts or fields or whatever you want to call them, small-sided pitches all over. And so if you can get more kids playing, you're naturally going to get them more interested in the sport, and then they're going to want to follow the team that, you know, is local to them, and so they'll be following that. But also, they're going to develop more skills. The issue a lot of times in America is that we produce robotic players and players that aren't either creative or can't think outside of a specific box. And when you're playing five-a-side with no coaches and you don't have to do things a certain way, and you need to basically survive if you want to keep playing, you need to figure things out. That's how you're going to really develop these skills. And so that's why, you know, I think that this is absolutely a home run. Everywhere in the country should be doing this. I want to shout out Sporting Kansas City. I think did something similar to this. They've built small-sided pitches. I think the Union have even built a handful of small-sided pitches, but what Atlanta's doing in building these in the transportation hubs where there's tons of people already there is absolutely brilliant, and that's what everybody else kind of needs to be doing. So I think this is an absolute home run. I'm very excited for this. Matt, anything else you want to add?
No.
Christian?
No, but I do want to throw out there that Barcelona lost to Espanyol in the Copa del Rey. I was wrong earlier. Just so you all know.
Well, thank you for adding that clarification. Before we get to our little wrap up here, I did want to just plug a couple of things. So I'm the founder of a fantasy soccer website, simplified fantasy soccer website called Fan Futsal. We have tournaments and games going on. Tournaments last a couple of weeks. They're kind of modeled after a World Cup style. So you have a group stage and then knockout rounds. Games last 1 week, so they're just weekly. We have all the major European leagues as well as Liga MX and MLS. So that'll run throughout the summer. So we always kind of have games going on there. Additionally, I have the Soccer Tavern YouTube channel, which is a YouTube channel discussing the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game. Today, we released a video basically about the history of nutmeg and why it's called a nutmeg in English-speaking countries. Nice. Yep. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing other terminology related videos, and then before the World Cup we're going to be releasing a ton of World Cup national team history videos. So go check that out. Search the Soccer Tavern. We'll link to it in the podcast show notes. You know, I'd really appreciate that. We already got to the one listener question. I did also want to shout out at good_v_tribe. I think his name was Bill. He was keeping me updated on the SKC absolute beatdown of Vancouver on Friday. So Bill, thank you for keeping me updated there. Christian, anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here?
Champions League predictions.
Matt, thoughts?
This game? Okay, this game or just total?
This game.
Yeah. The 2 games.
Okay, yeah. Well, I didn't know if you think who's going through. Like, I thought you meant, okay. I think Madrid and Liverpool both win. Wait, is Liverpool home or away?
Liverpool's home.
Yeah, I think Madrid and Liverpool both win.
Okay. Madrid wins on the road?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go Liverpool and Bayern win.
All right, no scores? Okay.
So 3-1 Liverpool, 2-1 Bayern.
Okay. I say 2-0 Bayern and 3-0 Liverpool. I think we got 2 clean sheets this week at home.
Matt?
I'm going to say 1-0 Liverpool and 3-1 Madrid.
Wow. Okay. So a couple of things. Matt, anything else you wanted to add?
Nah.
Okay. A couple of videos we'll link to in the show notes. I don't know what the hell is happening here, but a bear gave out the match ball at a match in Russia.
Oh.
So if you haven't seen,
crazy.
It's absolutely insane. So we'll tweet it out and definitely let us know your thoughts on that. Matt, did you have thoughts on Manchester City's Champions video where they had that like stomp clap or whatever?
I didn't get like everyone caring about it that much. I don't know. I feel like most things professional clubs do are kind of cordy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of falling to the same camp, but we'll tweet that out and let us know your thoughts there. Serie A title race is absolutely 100% back on. Napoli beat Juventus on the road. Napoli's only 1 point behind Juventus, and Juventus has, I think, a tougher run-in of games. So I know Juventus has won the last, 6 Serie A titles. So this could be the first one for a team other than Juve in a while. So definitely be following that. And lastly, congrats to Salah for getting the PWA, Player of the Year.
PFA, yeah.
Or yeah. Oh, it's PFA?
PFA.
Okay, PWA is a thing too, though, because that's the Pro Writers Association, I think, right?
Yeah, but that's not what it was.
No, but thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. That's why we keep you there. Matt, your thoughts on him getting it over De Bruyne?
I mean, we value goals so much. I mean, you can't really argue it.
Okay, fair enough. Christian?
De Bruyne has the most goals in the league this year from outside the box, but I think over the course of the season, De Bruyne was probably the best player in the league, but Salah did raise his game in the second half of the year, and I think he's been the best player, and that's when they voted happened.
Why are these given out so early? That's the thing. Like,
I don't understand that either.
Okay, I'm confused by that. If anybody listening out there wants to let us know, that would be fantastic because there's still almost a month left in the season.
Yeah, like De Bruyne could break the assist record. De Bruyne could still break the assist record too. Like,
yeah, well, Salah could break the goals record. So I mean, it was going to be between the two of them. It just depended on who.
Yeah, but there's still matches to be played that should influence that. Like that's what I don't understand, why these are given out so early. But if you happen to know, let us know. Christian, do you want to recap our trivia question? We'll give our answer.
You don't want to shout out Sane for a young player of the year?
Or? Sane is absolutely crushing it. I think
there was no doubt he deserved it over anybody else.
I mean, he looks like a future Ballon d'Or winner if he keeps moving on the way that he's going.
Yep.
Trivia question?
Matt. Okay, Matt didn't want to. You don't want to give Matt a chance here.
Everyone, yeah. I think our diehard listeners know my take on Sane. He's gonna be the best player.
You didn't think Sterling deserved it?
Is he still eligible?
Yeah, he was up for the award.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh my god.
It was like Sterling, Dele Alli, Ryan Sessegnon. That was crazy that he even made the list.
Wait, what? I thought it was only the Premier League.
No, it's like all of PFA. So I think it's like all England. He was on the list. So that's crazy that he made it from. Well,
sorry.
He deserves it over Sane, or
he deserves the nomination. Not
okay. All right.
Yeah, so I want to shout out him for making that list. That's crazy.
Yeah, good shout out. That was a good call.
Yeah.
Christian, you want to recap our trivia question?
Yeah. Dave, are you excited for the trivia question?
I'm fantastic. Yeah, it's going to be a long one, so we got to...
Okay, so can you guys name the 10 top points? I don't even know. What do I call that? Sorry.
Pointers?
Yeah.
Point havers? Okay, can you name the 10 top Premier League clubs in Premier League history, the last 25 seasons, in terms of points?
Okay. Matt, do you want to give your thoughts first, or you want me to go?
You get bonus points if it's in order.
Okay. Let me start at the top. So, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham. Then I'm going to say Everton. Oh, these next four are going to be tough. I'm going to say City around 7. Who's been in the Premier League a while? Stoke.
How many is he at, Christian?
I'm at 8. I'm at 8. Aston Villa and Leicester. I don't know. I'm just going to say that, even though.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to. So I think United is first, Arsenal is second, Liverpool third, Chelsea fourth, Tottenham 5th, Everton 6th. Then I'll go Newcastle 7th.
Forgot about them.
Yeah, Newcastle 7th. I'll say Villa. I'll put Villa at like 10th, but I'll just say them. Aston Villa. I'll going backwards a little bit. I'll put City at 9, even though I know that they haven't done well. I think they've done enough in recent years to maybe make a run there. And then I don't think it's Stoke, because Stoke's only been in the league for about 10 years. I know Leicester's gone back and forth. I'll
tell you, Dave, right now you got 9 of 9. So this is a big one.
Damn, this is big. Okay, now the pressure's on. All right. Who else? No, I already picked Tottenham.
No, you said the pressure's on.
Oh, yeah. I want to say Stoke, but I don't think that's right. I'm going to say Stoke, and I think that's wrong.
That is wrong.
Damn
West
it.
Ham was the one you missed.
Damn it. What's the order,
Manchester United, Arsenal. Dave, you were really close on order, too. Chelsea, then Liverpool.
Damn it.
Tottenham, Everton, Aston Villa was 7.
Oh.
Newcastle is 8. Man City is 9. West Ham is 10.
Damn. Okay. That was fun. That was a good one, Christian. Good job. Listeners, hopefully you did better than us and enjoyed that just as much as we did. Thank you for listening. If you want to check out any of the stories we discussed here, they will be in the podcast show notes. We'll also tweet them out from our Bros Talking Soccer Twitter handle, which is @BTSoccerPod. Go follow us there. You know, we love interacting with everybody. If you have questions, feedback, all of that, send it to us on Twitter, or you can email it to us. bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com is our email address. We also have a website, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. You can check out past episodes, read about us and our history, getting back to our roots, as Matt said earlier in the podcast, and so much more. We also record this thing live on YouTube. So search for Bros Talking Soccer on the YouTube channel, and we can, or you can watch us record this thing live and interact with us. That would be fantastic. Christian and Matt, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys talking with me. And listeners, thank you for listening this week, and we will talk to you next week. See you, everyone. All right.
I was hoping when I said nah, Matt was going to say yaha when we were talking about how we disagree on everything. I kept saying
Dave kept talking,
and I was waiting.
When you said I disagree, Dave kept talking, and I was going to say I agree.
All right, so number 11 was Blackburn, by the way.
I was going to think about them because I knew they won the
12
league.
is Southampton.
Damn, Southampton. That's impressive.
West
Ham, I totally would have gotten West Ham if I would have thought a little bit more.
Stoke are number 20 with 9 seasons played so far.
I just knew in recent years they just stuck around the Premier League. So I was like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to pick someone.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was good.
Didn't say Fulham or anything like that either.
No,
Fulham.
Clearly.
They weren't on it. They're higher than Stoke and Leicester.
I know, but Leicester winning, you know, I didn't know if that influenced them. I didn't say them, but Stoke, I know they've had, I think, about 10 years in the Premier League, and I know Leicester's oscillated between the first and second division. A lot of others have, but Blackburn would have been a good one. What about Bolton? Is that on there?
Bolton is number 17.
Okay. All right.
This is only through last season, so I wonder how close the changes, because Chelsea and Arsenal are really close.
City probably jumped.
Yeah.
Probably. Well, they probably jumped Newcastle. Let's see how many points they had. They definitely.
Okay. Anyone still watching on
Oh, they definitely did. They're 12
YouTube?
Points back.
Thank you for tuning in this week. We will talk to you next week. Say, everyone, have a good week.